This is JJ Humphrey. We're back on Elephant in the Room. Bob's back with us today. Bob, it is always good to have you, and we've got a really special guest. I put out earlier that newly elected Wayne Hill, but it's not really newly elected because it's a second term, but he did get reelected on GOP, Oklahoma GOP. Hey, before we get started, we just want to say a big shout out to all of our parents, mothers, not parents, but our mothers on this Mother's Day. We appreciate every one of you. We were talking about before we came on that my son just went to the military, and, it really was the first Mother's Day that my wife, he's been gone a week, and it was a really, really tough time for her this week, and he actually got to call home for Mother's Day. So that was really just a super, super good deal, super blessing for her and for her old dad too. So just want to say how much we appreciate you. Take your mothers for granted. It's best not to do that. If you haven't told your mother how much you love her, and if you haven't called her or just reached out to her, make sure you do that before the day's over. Wayne, it is great to have you on here.
Hey, let me add something here on that, JJ. Just happened today. A guy asked me how long we were married, and I said 62 years. He said, well, how could you do that? I said, it's very easy. Let her win every fight. Just say, I'm sorry, you're right, and then you got it made.
Hey, that's what my boy the other day, we were talking about that, and I said, son, you just got to pick your battles. What's really important? I said 90% of it is just not even worth arguing about. And I said, if you wait on the other 10%, then generally, if you put your foot down on the 10, you can hold some ground. So just make sure the important stuff is, and let the other stuff roll off your back. Well,
this guy's fixing to get married, and he's been going to a marriage counselor. I said, crap, you don't need that marriage counselor. Let me just tell you how it is. Forget the marriage counselor. You just always say, yeah, you're right, honey. I'm wrong. And then go on. Then you don't have any problems ever. When mama's not happy, nobody's happy.
And marriage counselors, I'm scared of marriage counselors. I had a guy that I used to supervise him, and his wife was going to marriage counseling, and his wife showed up, and he was messing around with the counselor and ended up going in divorce. So I've always steered away from the marriage counseling. I'd be like scared of that. So
I never heard that one. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Absolutely, Wayne. We got to get off. Me and Bob will go off on something. But hey, Wayne. So you got elected. I think I was looking at all of that. I had to take the kid. I was wanting to actually show up. I had to take the kid to get sworn in that weekend, and I didn't want to miss that. I'm glad I went to that. I needed to be there. But now y'all went. It was pretty big. Charity won by about 75%, didn't she?
Yes, she did. Yeah. First of all, let me say thank you, JJ and Bobby, for allowing me to be on your program. And I want to concur with your marital advice. I've been married 47 years, and that's worked for me so far. So yeah, I'm right there with you.
It took me a while to figure it out. Wayne, just most of it ain't worth. What? And in all seriously, there's some stuff that it's like, hey, I'm not going to argue with this. This is 90% of it is just like, hey, let the little stuff ride. You know what I'm saying? And it's their house, So that's why I always look at. I go to the cow lot. You know what I'm saying? Go to the barn. I hang out in the barn or something.
I got to shop.
Exactly. Go to the shop. Yep. So you got a on there by 75% as well, right?
74, basically 1 point under Charity.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So basically, when you say you won by 75%, so anybody listening that doesn't understand politics or doesn't understand what we're talking about, they had the GOP elections for the chairperson and for the vice chair, and so they won by 75%. And if you don't know, that's like a massive. That's a monkey stomping is what we like to call that back here in Lane, Oklahoma. That's a big monkey stomping, and so I would say that sends out a really clear message that the grassroots. Or do you call yourself a grassroots? Are you calling? I mean, is that how you would I mean, what would you say the message was on that, Wayne?
Well, there is an element within the Republican Party, the state Republican Party, and it's primarily made up of people consider themselves grassroots. And it's people that are concerned about the Constitution, advancing freedom and liberty for their children and grandchildren, and they want accountability. And they want the Republican Party to be a voice for traditional Republican values.
I'd say, what I'd say on that grassroots is I would say the people who were just big Trump supporters are some of that grassroots movement. You know what I'm saying? Now, not all of them are as staunch, but what I'm saying, those people who've been, on the Trump train, for lack of a better word, are some of those people that I would say are some of your best grassroots people and that we're seeing in the state. So basically you got in the party what, for lack of a better word, what we call establishment people and establishment people. See if you agree with this. Bob, jump right on in if y'all disagree with me. But establishment people are kind of the old regime of the Republican Party, the kind of what you see as the money type Republican Party. And again, that's what you've seen the GOP. When I think of the GOP, that's what I've been thinking of.
You got to have money to run that place. You can't make it if you don't have any money.
Bob, I agree. The question is, where does your money come from, and how do you organize and raise money? But now, Wayne, y'all got now. Correct me if I'm wrong. There was a big money issue going on. That was one of the biggest. I put that in there today when I put out our little, briefing of what we were going to talk about. I put in there that the money has been a big, big thing. And so is there, I hear there is money missing. Who knows if there's money missing? Do we owe money? I heard that Nathan wouldn't open the books and let anybody look at the money. Tell us a little bit about what's going on there, what y'all tried to do to get to the bottom of this money issue, and what was the problem?
First of all, there are several issues that you've touched upon. Let's talk about the fine. There's a Federal Ethics Commission fine levied upon the Oklahoma Republican Party from previous administrations. This is before Nathan Dahm. This is before him. It's almost a $200,000 fine because there wasn't due diligence and there wasn't a budget committee oversight and state committee oversight. Reports were failed to actually be filed with the FEC. Consequently, they zapped us with a hefty fine. And so we have to pay that over the next 2 years. As far as opening the books of the Oklahoma Republican Party, the budget committee attempted vigorously to have oversight of the previous chairman, to no avail. He never would open up the books to us. And so we're just now kind of getting into those books. And the treasurer, John Elliott, has been very cooperative with us. So Charity Lynch is on top of that. She's finding out how much money we owe, all the accounts that exist. And we have to investigate this and see where we go from there.
Well, you got $200,000. You got to pay it back in 2 years.
Yes, sir. That is correct, Bobby.
That's a pretty hefty payment.
Yes, sir, it is. It's $8,000 a month, and that's just the fine. That's not counting rent, and then also the other expenses.
How many thousand is it a month?
To $8,000 a month.
$8,000 a month. And you say that's not counting rent and other issues you have.
But we are talking to individuals that have committed to help us fundraise. I'm talking about some very prominent individuals, prominent names. So we think it's a very doable. It's going to be challenging. There's no doubt about it. It's a high hurdle to actually accomplish, but we firmly believe we can do it with the assistance of these individuals. And we were already mapping out a plan.
Has anybody went to the no ethics department and asked them to try to waive that? I mean, could they not waive that? Could they decrease that? I mean, what?
Yeah, the previous administration actually hired a lawyer in DC, and they were negotiating with the FEC, and they did bring it down. I believe it was like from 300,000 to like really the number is more like 190 or $285,000. It's approaching 200,000, but they knocked it down $100,000 through negotiation.
What did they do to get fined that much?
That's kind of a little on the controversial side. There's different stories that have been floating around. Primarily, the accountant. Again, I'm going to go back to budgetary oversight. Our party has been run top down by a strong autocratic chair. That's not what's in our rules. In our rules is that we're a bottom-up party, and that the state convention and the state committee are the supreme authority of our party. They have oversight. They have supposed to give our chairman direction and our vice chairman. Those two people serve at the pleasure of the state convention and state committee. The budgetary committee is responsible for all expenditures. In our rules, they have the authority. Those rules, those have not been complied to in multiple administrations.
Well, one of the things that I had heard was that, like, you may have donations showing, and I'm just going to use a hypothetical. Guys, we're using made up numbers here, okay? So let's say that somebody donated $10,000, and then you go over and go talk to the guy. So he's showing, Bobby Cleveland donates $10,000. I know Bobby, and I know Bobby's tight, and I don't think Bobby would donate $10,000. So I go over and say, Bob, did you really donate $10,000? Heck no, I didn't donate $10,000. And yet it's showing $10,000. Now, is there some, I was told that there's maybe more of that going on, that was quite, I don't want to say frequent, but it occurred more than 4 or 5 times is what I was told. Now, is that true or is that a rumor, or what's your perspective on that?
Well, we've had a forensic accountant go and look at the FEC filings and then try to look at, to the best of their ability, what is presented at the state convention and state committee as far as the financials. They're not matching up. And so this is still to be examined and determined, but there looks like there potentially could be those discrepancies, but yet I don't want to say definitively because,
now, how much is that costing?
Still to be determined.
What's that
There was
costing?
I'm sorry, Bobby, excuse me, sir.
What's it costing this party for that?
Well, this forensic accountant is doing his services free.
Okay, what did it cost the attorney?
We don't know the cost that the attorney fee. We don't know what it is because those have not been disclosed to the budget committee. So we don't know. And those are the type of information that we're trying to determine.
Right. That's the issues that are out there that were big issues, were the transparency. So basically what you're saying, under y'all's administration, you are going to be transparent and you're going to answer to the body and not just a couple of people.
Absolutely. That is the commitment of Charity Lynch, who is doing a fine job, by the way. I want to commend her at getting all this in order and trying to understand the books. She spent the last several days up at the headquarters in Oklahoma City. She's gone over contracts. She's been working with John Elliott, the current treasurer, trying to determine what is actually the status of our finances. So I just want to commend her. There was another discrepancy. There were 20 or 22 people that supposedly gave $500 donations. These were listed in with the FEC as $500.01, $500.02, $500.03. It was given over a 3-day period of time, but they were logged at different times within the month. So there was an individual on the budget committee that discovered this and inquired about it. Well, as soon as that happened, the party contacted the FEC and said that was a clerical mistake. Well, it's hard to make a clerical mistake of $500.01, $500.02, $500.03, all the way up to $500.22. And so then they said it was the Red Curve, which is our accounting firm, it was their mistake. And they had a letter that they admitted where Red Curve made the mistake. We asked for that letter and it was never forthcoming. That still has not been produced yet. So you know what? There are several questions. There are many questions that need to be answered, and Charity Lynch has committed to get to the bottom of it.
Absolutely.
Can I ask a question, JJ, if you don't mind? Now I'm listening on Facebook. I'm looking on Facebook and I'm seeing some negative comments about the party. Did we kick somebody out and not, or did we also not allow somebody to attend that got there after 9 o'clock?
You talking about to the state convention?
State convention, yes, sir.
I don't know of that incident. I do know there was a lady from our county, Osage County, and she tried to register, and she was successful. And so she registered the day of that morning, and she was able to actually participate as a delegate. So if you bring it to my attention, I'd like to know about it, because I'm not aware of that one. Now, if you're talking about the young Republicans and college Republicans, that was a resolution that was passed by the state convention, which is 1,000 people. And what that did was it took away their voting privileges as a block. And we were wanting them to participate at the precinct and county level to actually side by side with us. Some of those individuals were not even registered Republicans. It also, those two groups had more delegate votes than 67%. Or 60, I'm sorry, it's like 66 counties had total votes. So they had more votes at our state convention than the majority of counties had. That just wasn't equitable.
So Wayne, let me, so for our listeners, I know and Bobby knows what Wayne's talking about, and most of our listeners that listen to this, I would assume probably know as well. But every once in a while, we'll have listeners that may not. And so we had the Young Republicans group, which we all encourage. I've seen Charity putting some stuff out, working with Young Republicans, so that you understand a lot of people got upset because they had a resolution to stop the Young Republicans, and people were mad saying, well, why are we kicking out young? We ought to invite Young Republicans. We want to, foster them and mentor them, and we want them aboard. Absolutely. Everybody agrees on that. What Wayne's talking about is they had this block over here that made them where they could control everything, and that many of them may not even been registered, again, had not showed up at stuff. And so what he's talking about, that they need to go out and join their local precincts and be a voice in that and be active in their local places and get alongside those people and run for office in those places and get involved. And we want more people involved. We want our rural counties out there extremely involved in the GOP, which is something we haven't had, and Wayne, there was one that I know of where our chairperson out of Antlers had pre-registered, had prepaid, showed up 10 minutes late, couldn't get in. I thought I'd try to call you. I tried to call a couple of people. No, everybody was on there, and I knew, I was like, I ain't gonna get nobody. And somebody called me back. I can't remember who it was, and they was gonna get her in, and she had already left. Her husband was having some other kind of conference up there, and she had already went over to that conference and said, I'm not gonna come back. So, it's one of them deals that she's a little frustrated, and rightfully so, but it's one of them deals we just have to work out and knock out the kinks. And so there was some problems. We also had a report that
I do know what you're talking about on that one. JJ.
She's pretty reasonable. I mean, you know what I'm saying? I think we can work all that out. Now, I had heard that one of the counties were actually either they didn't register appropriately or for some reason they weren't allowed to participate. Now I think that's what you're talking about, Bob, ain't it?
Yeah.
Do you know what county it was, Bobby?
No, I don't. So
I want to say, was it Atoka, Bob?
Yeah.
Hey, that's y'all's aiming at JJ's district, Wayne. You're getting my district, son.
Well, so that one that you were talking about, JJ, so there were two different county conventions held. One had a 3-day notice and the other one had a 10-day notice. And so the credentialing committee had to determine, this is the official committee, had to determine which delegation was the legitimate delegation. That went to a vote of the state body. And so actually the state body, which is the supreme authority, voted on that. And so that was settled among the OKGOP. The leadership has nothing to do with how that is rectified or how that is settled.
So basically what you're saying, Wayne, is you have two different groups wanting to represent the same party,
Yep.
and somebody has to be an authority to say, nope, this is how you're supposed to do it. And that should have really been handled more down on their level, because they should have just sent one delegation. Am I breaking that down right?
No, you're exactly correct. And it's unfortunate that happened. And I do believe initially it was a miscommunication on trying to communicate with one another, the two different groups, and it just kind of broke down in miscommunication, or maybe missed messages or something.
But you cannot keep them from coming in.
So Bobby, so the state convention has to determine who is an official delegate. And so all that information was actually presented to them for them to actually adjudicate that. And so, I mean, that they're the supreme authority. And so, I mean, their word is the final word. They're my supreme authority. They're the chairman's supreme authority. So whatever their decision is final.
That wouldn't keep them from coming in. That'd just keep them from being the delegate, the recognized delegate, correct. Right? They could still come in. I'm not a recognized delegate. I can get in there. I just can't vote on nothing.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Well, right. Well, Wayne, now it came to me that, and it looks like to be, that you guys handled the young Republicans in a really bad way. That should have didn't settle a long time ago before this convention even started.
In what way, Bob?
To change the way that you're going to, you're saying you don't have the young Republicans because you didn't like the way the delegates were situated with the young Republicans.
So that's a rule. In our rules, that is the supreme authority as far as what we have to go by. And so all rule changes have to go basically to the state convention. So it can't be done beforehand because it takes a vote of the state convention. So there's no negotiating or anything like that beforehand. Although, there was talks between the young Republicans and college Republicans.
Reluctantly, I disagree with that, what you're saying.
Well, let me say two things. First of all, the young Republicans are anywhere from 8 to 40 years of age. And they are not in college, basically. They are just young Republicans. And they had I think they had 20 votes, if I'm not, they either had 10 or 20, I can't remember. And Bobby, this is honestly, I did not, I think I can say my opinion. I did not want to go this direction. I wanted to give the college Republicans votes for representation. That was my personal opinion, but my opinion doesn't matter because I don't have any say in it except as one delegate and one vote. This was a decision by the state convention, and again, it was voted on, and they're the final say. So I mean, that's these Republicans.
Well, I wasn't there to hear how it was voted on or what brought up the vote or who contested the vote. I wasn't in there, but I can say that basically, even on what you're telling me was done wrong. From the young Republicans
I'm sorry, excuse me.
Okay, from the young Republicans to the college Republicans. We need those people in here. We need young people to get involved. I know plenty of young people that got involved in the college Republicans and now are dedicated conservatives who even help in the party. And they got started as a college Republican.
I agree with you. I think the college Republicans are a very vital, vibrant organization, and we need to support them. In fact, Charity has actually appointed 2 young people. One is Kennedy Garza and Brianna. I can't remember Brianna's last name, but she's appointed them to be outreach directors for those groups and to bring them in and try to usher them into at the precinct level and to support those groups. And we want to do fundraisers with those groups. We want their participation. And this was not about discouraging their participation. This was about equity from the state convention's perspective, about equity among the counties. Too many counties, the majority of counties, the rural counties, did not have the number of votes that those 2 organizations had. and these counties did not feel like that was equitable, and so that was the rationale.
Well, I would like to see, as GOP, I'd like to see us get involved with, those programs like Charlie Kirk, and take back, if you want to see woke is in our colleges, and if there's any, you know what I'm saying, if there's any stomping ground where we need to be stomping and rooting out wokeness and getting in, and I do believe that they're, Derwin, he's tied in with that.
Charlie Kirk.
Oh yeah, I love him.
Me too.
I think that Charlie Kirk had the largest turnout of college students there, or I say college students, of young people at OSU. When he came to OSU, I think there was like 3,000 people turned out on that. So that's really, I think that's a place where we really, as a party, need to concentrate. But I understand what you're saying, how you break that up into a block, who gets to vote, what it is. So we're not saying we don't want young people. We're saying that we want to break that up. I will tell you something else, Wayne, that I had Charity on probably a week or two before that election. And one of the things that I suggested is that, if you guys get in there, and you're in there now, so I'm going to throw it out again. We don't use the technology that we have available right now for the best of our GOP. And what I mean by that, if we could do town halls, if we could do Zooms, and I know that the rules might have to be tweaked a little bit to allow to do that. I'm not sure where that, if there's rules against it or not. But anyways, when you're down here at Hugo, you can't just drop in and jump in the vehicle and run up there 3 hours to go to a meeting that generally occurs either in Tulsa or Oklahoma City. And if we were allowed to get on there in a town hall, or if we had a website that, man, they could get on and hear some of the podcasts like what we're doing today and having a discussion on breaking that down, or like I think Charity put out, that's where me and Bobby talked about this, and I was kind of more like, what the crap did they do? And then she put out a video that explained some of the stuff, or, she had that there's a young girl there that she's promoting, and you see. So again, I understand what you're saying a little bit better, but if we had some kind of platform where we could go out and say, hey, here's what happened at the convention, and let us break it down to you. This is the board that did this. This is why they did it. This is why it had to be done at this time. This is what we're trying to do. And if we could do that, and people really found out where that site was and started getting on that site, I think I think it would be super beneficial to reach rural communities. Of course, Wayne, and you're from a rural area, I think, aren't you? I mean,
yes, sir. I am.
You're
I live
up there in Osage country. So you know what I mean? I want to see.
I'm a rural boy.
Yeah, I want to see more rural. I think we can grow the party, get the party. I think people out in the rural community were Democrat, but some of your blue dog Democrats are actually better Republicans. I tell people all the time, hey, some of my blue dog Democrats, if you took them up there and watched them punch the ticket, they'd be better Republicans than half
Little Dixie. You're Little Dixie, JJ.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. We were Democrat for years. I mean, it was Democrat, but when it flipped, and Choctaw County is a good example of that. Hey, we went from being almost all. I was the first Republican elected down there.
Let's talk about this poll, Book. I know things are going to get away from us real quick. Let's talk about the poll.
Yeah.
The importance of the poll.
The survey. You talk about the survey?
Yeah, survey.
Yeah.
So before we go there, can I address two things that you said, JJ? Yeah. Charlie Kirk's turning point. I've already talked to Derwin, and they're planning an event in Oklahoma. I think it's July. We need to follow up with one another. Derwin asked Charity and I to participate with Charlie and him on stage. And so the Republican Party will be a big part of that. And also, as far as Charity and I are going to all the rural areas, we go to the GOP meetings. and we're talking to the GOP groups, county groups. But I think your suggestion about Zoom calls or using technology is an excellent one. Just reaching out to people. Also,
Yeah,
we're planning a door knocking campaign, precinct development. So, yep.
And,
Okay.
and that's
Very
going to
well.
have to be developed. That's going to have to be developed. We won't get there overnight. It's just something I would like to see us go in a direction. Hey guys, what Bob is talking about. So here's what I want to say before we start talking about that survey: is that me and Wayne have the same heart. We're made from the same. I think we're cut from the same cloth. I mean, I think if you're looking for a person that's ready to passionately stand up and getting just an all out down, hey, we're going to be on this thing. He's our man. Me and him's had many discussions on this off air, and we'll probably continue to have many more discussions. This is a place where me and him don't agree all the time. But the reason I want Wayne on, and I am very proud that he comes on, even though he knows that me and him don't always agree, so he can hold his own, I can hold my own, and that's what I want people to see. It's okay for me to disagree with him. It's okay for him to disagree with me. We can do it in a civil way. And guess what? At the end of the day, we'll let you make up your mind who's right. And it may be that we're about 50-50, where we're at. And so, again, one of the things that we were talking about, this survey, how did you come up with the survey, Wayne? How did you base, is it 480 bills that y'all looked at? 480 bills is what you looked at?
First of all, JJ, let me say thank you. I appreciate you letting me come on the program. And I firmly believe in this dialogue that we communicate with one another. That's the only way we're going to understand one another and hopefully come to a meeting.
All right, guys, we don't need to hear all that crap. Let's just get down to it because we don't have much time. And we'll let JJ take all the time up.
All right.
Well, Bob, I do want to say one thing. We will get surveyed, but here's one of the things that I think is most important. We got to get unity in our party. We got to get unity. We got to get back to the place. And again, so yes, and I do think the survey is important. So we get on it, Bob. You're working this, but we're gonna get on it. So 480 bills. Is that what you?
So we looked at every single piece of legislation that was passed by
both. Who's we? Who's we?
Well, we have a team. And so we have a team that actually works on this. It's multiple people, and so we have our criteria. Well, let me explain the process, the methodology first.
Okay.
We looked at every single bill that passed both chambers of the legislature and went to the governor to become law, and that was approaching 500 bills. We actually, I think, what we could compare, we could closely compare. I think it's like 247 pieces of legislation that actually was comparable to our Republican platform, our OKGOP Republican platform. That is the position of the Republican Party. These are the values that have gone through a vetting process and have gone all the way to the state convention for a vote of the convention, and that's our position paper. That is the official document of the Oklahoma Republican Party on where the party stands on issues. And so what we did was we took every piece of legislation that became law, the law that the people of Oklahoma have to live under. Every time a law is passed, it affects someone's life one way or another. So we looked at all those pieces of legislation, 247, I believe. We compared it to the Republican platform, and we scored each legislator how they voted. And so that is the process that we went through. This is objective. My opinion had not, I did not put my opinion in it. It is the platform, the bills, and then the scoring.
But let me you do recognize that the House and the Senate, or the Senate, don't recognize your rules.
Don't recognize what?
The rules you're talking about.
Oh, well, see, that's okay, Bobby. That's the problem. They don't listen to the people. But let me take Senate Bill 224. Senate Bill 224 was a bill that had passed in the Senate. 31 different grassroots organizations lobbied and signed a document sent to the leadership of the House to not pass this legislation. This legislation was to accumulate academic information at the state level and then share it with other state agencies, the federal government, and sell this information to vendors.
And they didn't agree with you.
No, the leadership manipulated the members of that chamber in order for it to go their way. And that's what happens too often, is the leadership controls the vote and also the legislation that actually is heard in both of those chambers. And the people know that, and they're tired of that. And that's why they're trying to bring accountability and also a voice of the people.
But now let me jump in on that bill, because I was a no every time on that bill. I mean, I
thank you, sir,
and I solid with it because I agree with what you're saying. But let me just show you where your survey to me is flawed, because I agreed with the fact that they didn't need to sell that data. That is wrong. That is wrong. Period. But I never equated that. I never, ever equated that with the platform. For me, the platform is abortion, Second Amendment, and it is protecting your rights. I agree that it is protecting your rights. And I see where you're going to get that, but that's pretty close. And that's a pretty, you know what I'm saying? That was a bigger bill. But you got a lot of bills. Let me give you an example of the same type of thing that we're discussing. Okay, workforce. There was a bill out there on workforce. And a guy that votes no a lot, voted no, who I respect and love really, really well and talk to him all the time. And I'm in a meeting with him. I said, hey, why did you vote no on that? I know you had a reason. What was the reason? And he said, JJ, they can take your old scores that you scored in third grade and they can use that against you and force you to go into technology school and wouldn't have a opportunity to go to college. Now, I'm going to tell you, Wayne, I looked at that bill. I don't know. I didn't get that, me reading that bill. I didn't get that. Now, is it possible? It is possible. And if I understood that, I would vote that way. But that's a really an opinion. That's an opinion, and for people to make that opinion when that's a pretty darn, if it is the right opinion, it's on the line of the right opinion, and we're judging on stuff like that people are supposed to look at these 60 bills a day or 40 or whatever we're passing and try to come up with that. And here's where I'm at. I mean, you've talked about this, so I do want people to know we talk behind the scene. And where I'm at, if you want me to vote that way, and if you're scoring me that way, then we ought to get a committee to look at these and put out the information so that I can look at it in advance and go, oh, this is what they're talking about. This is why that's a platform bill, because I'm going to tell you most of them, I don't agree. Here's for me, platform. Is it abortion? Is it Second Amendment? Is it social? Is it law enforcement? Is it taxes? And guess what? If you look at how I vote on those issues, I think I'll be as solid as anybody you've got up there. But when you're talking about the bills that we're talking about here, that's where you lose me. That's where I get a bad score, which getting a bad score doesn't. Let's
get down to this, JJ, and you correct me, JJ, if I'm wrong. As a legislature, you go up there, and you're thinking you're going up there, you're going to really vote good, you're going to represent your district. You know, you're voted in, you're going to represent your district. But then when you get there, the leadership says, oh, no, you got to vote this way. And
that's exactly what I'm talking about, Bobby.
They pressure you to vote that way, and then you get turned up with a bad vote. But you're not going up there to the Capitol. The way I've always felt about it is I didn't get elected by the leadership. I got elected by the people in my district, and I vote with my district.
I agree. I think all three of us agree on that, Bob. We're 100%. And here's the difference is that we all have a different way of getting, how do you solve that problem? And where I'm at, I got took off the chairmanship. I got took off my committee. My committee got killed because guess why? Because I stand up to them like nobody else will stand. And I say that openly. There is nobody fighting leadership on both sides of the aisle. I got Senate leadership as mad at me as the House leadership. You know what? I'm fighting them all but I score low, even though I try. I mean, I think most people know I will stand up and fight for what I believe the platform is. And again, I don't have a problem voting on the things you're talking about, Wayne. It's just who knows. And again, I don't have a problem. You know me, Wayne, well enough to know if I don't agree with something, I'll tell you. I don't backstab you. That's why you're on this program. And so here's the deal. That's what I'm saying. Y'all are grading people. And I'll give you an example. We had some really, really, what I say, are even stouter than I am. I mean, I had to look over at a couple of them and go, darn, they're so far right of me, I can't hardly even see them over there, and they scored low. And then you had some liberal Democrats that scored higher. So that's what I'm saying. When you're looking at that shows that system, because again, if somebody scores a 58, maybe on the curve, that really wasn't that bad, but people don't know that. And then when they see these really conservative scoring low, it harms all of us. What do you think on that?
Well, there's a lot of factors that you just put out there. First of all, let's talk about conservative and liberal. This is not a conservative liberal scorecard. What it is this is based on platform, the vote, and then score. And if you look at what we consider some of the most conservative people in our legislature on both sides of each chamber, you're talking about what are considered conservative by their scores with other scorecards. OK2A, the Oklahoma Constitution. These are people that score really high. And so like Tom Gann, like Nathan Dahm, like Dusty Devers, Rick West, these people, they did really good on this scorecard. Why? It's because they vote according to the platform. Now, then you have the ones that you would think like McBride and Baker and those individuals who always score low on these other scorecards. Well, they scored low as well. But we're looking at not just 10 or 15 bills like these other scorecards actually look at. And I'm not knocking OK2A or Oklahoma Constitution. They are very valid information, and these are liberty bills. Those are the ones you're talking about, and those individuals that you're talking about always score high. But we're only talking about 10 on Oklahoma Constitution. They evaluate 10 bills. OK2A evaluated 13 bills. A lot of that legislation, those bills, never become law because either the chair the leadership doesn't let them be heard, or they discourage the vote where they get defeated. And this is what we're trying to do, is raise the standard of what we see in both chambers.
But your bills, see why I can do good with OK2A, because I know exactly what they are looking for, and I'm gonna give it because I agree with them. Yours, I can't get it because I don't know it. And again, you know how I score high on your vote? You know what I can do? I can knock the top out of your survey. You know what I do? I just go in there and tape my red button down. I just go in there and tape the red button, and guess what? I'll do good, because even the ones I vote against probably ain't going to be scored that bad. You know what I'm saying? So
what I would say in regard to that, every single piece of legislation that passes and gets signed by the governor affects people's lives. And most of it is a perpetuation of the existing status quo. And it's perpetuation of government. People are tired of government we have 80% Republicans on both sides, on each chamber, on the Senate and the state. But yet we can't get a conservative legislation through committee, and then also government. We're not seeing any tax relief. We're not seeing
here's the deal.
Government. We're saying, JJ, that's what people are tired of.
Here's the deal. The way I look at your survey, if you ever shoot, I do a lot of shooting. Okay, I have to qualify every year. So you got your bullseye. I can imagine you would be. So you got your bullseye, and then you got your 10 ring, and you go on out, okay? Here's where I'm at. Legislators, guess what? Leadership is what's the problem with what you're talking about.
I concur with you.
Now y'all are shooting at the 20 rig when you ought to be shooting at the bullseye. Because here's the deal: you're getting people like me, and here's the other thing. I can. It doesn't hurt me that bad. That's why I can openly. I have no problem. I am who I am. I'm a transparent, and we're not getting anything like how much money did I recover? How much money did I find? What were the bills? Go look at the bills that I filed and they killed that were great conservative bills. So we don't get all of that. When you're looking at me, I score 35, and you go, "By damn, Mo JJ's a liberal." You know, no, look at what I'm doing, man. I'm doing all this. But here's the deal. I ain't worried about hurting me because my people know me, and I get out and I stay in touch with everybody, and I get on here and have conversations. But we've got a lot of people in a 50-50, you know. I can name you 6 people right now that could be beat just that quick. And again, I'd rather have them be a more rhino, if you want to call them, but they're good on platform. They vote right on abortion. They vote right on you know what I'm saying? And by doing this survey, we're hurting those. And if you get rid of those, you're going to get a liberal Democrat. So what do you say to that?
Well, first of all, I don't know if you've read Jason Murphy's Substack. And what he does is he looks at all the votes in the legislature and he gives a percentage of how often those Republican legislators vote with the leadership. They are coaxed into voting, and unfortunately, they capitulate to leadership. Too many people capitulate to leadership in our legislature. He can show that 93.4% of the time, 93.4% of the time, the bodies are voting in the House are voting with the leaders. And the leaders are the ones
if you don't vote with them, they're going
to setting the agenda. The ones that are setting the agenda. And if we had more legislators that were saying, no, you don't let us hear, you don't let us let our bills be heard. Why should we capitulate to your pressure? And that's what they do, JJ. Too many legislators capitulate to the leadership, and they do it maybe for a variety of reasons. They think they're going to get their bills heard. Maybe they get a position on a committee. They get funding within the House from the leadership, from their funds to campaign on. There's a variety of reasons why. That's the kind of behavior that we're trying to make people aware of and to stop. Instead of listening to the lobbyists, we wanted to listen to the Republicans, the ones that actually vote for them and put them into office.
But you're hurting people like JJ, who scored a 30 or 35, you said. That's not helping him out any. So your polling needs to be twisted around.
But well, I'm not here to be a cheerleader for any particular Republican. I'm here to actually to record the vote and to let the people decide. And our scorecard is not the only scorecard. There's the Oklahoma Constitution. There's OK2A. There are other scorecards.
I want to talk about one other thing. Just a second.
Hold on.
One other thing too.
Hold on, Bob.
JJ, hang on.
Bob, I want to get this though real quick. I am a person who doesn't capitulate, and everybody knows that. If there's one guy in their butt, and so I don't capitulate, but I vote on bills. And what I'm trying to tell you is the bills that y'all are grading on, I don't vote no. If I have zero problem voting no against them, I'll vote no on anything. No problem. It ain't no sweat to me. I just want to know what I'm voting on, and I want to know why. And so the things that, I could vote no just to say I know, but I'm not a person that's just no. I need to know why. And if I know why, I'll vote no. And that's what I'm trying to tell y'all. The votes you're taking and scoring on are not what I call platform votes. They're not. Y'all are calling them platforms, and that's where we're in a disagreement. For me, platform is platform. What is the actual platform? If I'm having to guess and go, is that bill really platform, and how far down the stream do I got to go? Is that
well, do you know about that ahead of time? Do you know it's a platform bill ahead of time?
Get it out in front of there, and I'll vote right. I have no problem voting right. I have no problem voting no. Please tell me what I'm voting on so I know what the crud is going on, and I'll get my score up there to a lovely lovely bit, but I'm not just going to vote no.
JJ, I would love to see you at a 60 or 70% because I know there's no one that stands up for right more than you do. I know the work you do, your investigative work, and I support you and I respect you for that. So
let's don't go
the platform,
JJ.
the platform is whatever principle is found in the OKGOP platform. That is a plank in the platform.
Well,
A lot of it has to do with perpetuation of government.
JJ,
yeah, go ahead, Bob. I cut y'all.
Okay. Now, another thing that I have been told is, oh, that guy missed 150 votes, or that guy missed 50 votes, or 5 votes, whatever. But do you realize that if you make, you can have 60 votes in one, you can have 60 votes in one day. You can miss one day and lose 60 votes. So the people have to understand that, and you can't criticize somebody because he missed 150 votes, because that just be, he could be COVID for a week. That doesn't make him a bad representative.
Those missed votes are not counted against them in the scorecard. They were the last time, but they weren't this time. We excluded those. And I would tell you, Bobby, there's no excuse for not reading these bills. First of all, as they come out of committee, those bills could start being read before you get them the night before. And I know what leadership does. I know they give them to you the night before, and you may have 30, 60 bills that you have to read and scrutinize. But if those bills would have already been read whenever they started coming out of committee, and you would have made a spreadsheet saying, you know what, at this point in time, I'm not in favor of this bill. That can be done. There are legislators that do that. And I will tell you, I've talked to legislators. Too many legislators are not reading these bills.
Can I ask
They're
you,
not reading them, Bobby. And that, I would tell you, if I were to do my job that way, if I didn't do due diligence in my occupation, I would be terminated.
Oh, I agree with you. But you know, Jason Murphy, let me just tell you this. I don't think Jason Murphy missed a day in 12 years of voting. I could be wrong, but it seemed like he was there every time. I missed a couple of days. But this difficult time, what you're trying to do in your survey is, I think I don't like what you're doing in your survey. I think it's the wrong way to go about doing it. But
let me ask you this. I agree with what you're trying to do. I won't say that, Wayne. Me and you agree on what you're trying to do. We disagree, and I think Bob would be on that.
Yeah,
all three of us, I know both of you pretty well, and I'm going to tell you, we're all closer. We just have a disagreement on how to do it.
We want to end up at the same place.
Absolutely. I think
I have never seen it this way. When I was there, you know, they would ask you to vote that way, but they wouldn't penalize you. They would not vote. They would not let you do anything or take your committee away from you. I've never seen, since I've been involved in politics, it's what's happened this year in the House.
Oh, it's ugly. It's ugly.
But you don't follow their rules. You don't do what they do. Way they want you to vote, they'll kick you out.
Well, I had one threaten to whip me the other day on a chain in front of 77 people. He said, "Hey, I'm coming. I'll be there Monday. Whoop your ass." One in leadership. I was like, room 301. 301, easy to find. You know what I'm saying? I'm very easy to find. And again, when you say make them mad, I promise you.
I know you do.
I
know that for a fact, JJ.
Let me ask you a question, though. Some people over here reading the bills, and that's important. I agree with you. But I got a view of them bills. You ever been to dog races? And
I've never been to a Greyhound dog race. No, sir.
But they throw that rabbit out there. You've seen it. They throw that rabbit out there. Yeah. All them dogs take after it. That's the way it is at the old Capitol. All these bills, you guys take off after them, and y'all all like that. Well, guess what? They're still in the bank while y'all's all work in prison. This is the oldest trick in the book. While they're talking to you, look behind you because they're robbing you out to. So here's the deal. I'm all for the bills. I think they're important, but I'm more on how much money is missing from DHS and why, if $100 million is missing, are they asking for another $100 million and can't even tell you why? Guess what? What about mental health? I come out right at the beginning of the year. Y'all better watch mental health. Guess what? DOC, you're going to get 314 tagged on you. I have been right.
JJ, you have my endorsement if it's worth anything. Believe me, because I know the good work you're doing, and I appreciate it, sir. You know, first of all, getting these bills the night before,
I
That
agree.
should be exposed.
I agree.
And guess it's the rules. It's the House rules or the Senate rules actually allow that. And who votes in the leadership? The body does. And they do it
I didn't vote.
in secret. They do it in secret, JJ.
I didn't vote for leadership. They know it. That's why I don't have a committee anymore.
Well, that's why you don't get bills passed too, because you didn't vote for them. You don't.
I agree.
You don't dance with them. They stick you on the sidelines.
I agree, but I disagree at how you get to the survey, because the questions I don't know. Even if I look like that one I was talking about, we mentioned Tom Gann. I'm gonna just say Tom because I don't think he'd mind me. So I go ask Tom, why was it that you voted that? Because I'm interested how y'all get to this conclusion, And I was like, I did not get that out of that bill. I actually looked at that. I thought that was a good bill to help put people to work. Now, maybe we could say too much government. I get that. I think we do have too much government. I'm for cutting. If they come over, I can show them lots of paces.
Okay, JJ, can I finish up here?
Later.
You don't interrupt me.
We're giving you quite a bit of the platform, Bob.
I've got more than I usually get. I agree. But I'd say this, and this, I'm not saying this because he's here, but I hate being in the car with JJ. You can't have a conversation with him. He's getting phone call after phone call after phone call. He goes.
I may be getting green, but I'm having a good time doing it.
But he goes to speak with all over the state. He's probably one of the most popular guys we got up there, and he's treated the worst.
I agree with you. Because he
stands
up.
You know what the problem is up there too is the bureaucrats. Those people in the House don't agree with the leader, with the bureaucrats over the representatives.
Oh yeah,
and the lobbyists.
That's the lobbyists. But man, those bureaucrats. Why are we carrying down to the Department of Corrections, to the Human Services, and its money?
Let's have an Oklahoma Doge. We need an Oklahoma Doge.
Well, I started
and clean house.
I started a series this week. Not the Oklahoma Doge, it's the Oklahoma Dodge. I'm doing the Dodge report, and we're dodging all of the stuff.
You're going to burn it down.
Y'all need to tune into that. JJ4OK.com. Wayne, we ran out of time. We got to have you back on here. I thank you for your willingness to you know what I'm saying? You know that we're going to put a little spur to you, and you
thank you, Wayne.
I appreciate you.
JJ, Bobby, thank you. I've enjoyed myself. I
have to. I have to, and I think we've informed a lot of people. Y'all have a blessed Mother's Day. You guys have a good one.
Thank you, JJ.